Whether it's a good race or a bad race, it doesn't matter. It does not matter to me. It's a historic racetrack. Our cars have gone there for now 30 years, and to be able to race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is an honor. And it needs to be on the oval. We don't need any more irrelevant years at the Brickyard racing on the road course and going backwards down the front straightaway. Please.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What a race! California's Kevin Harvick does it. Tree making right there. You're the man.
Welcome to Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour, presented by Nascar on Fox. I'm Kevin Harvick. She's Kaitlyn Vincie. And I'm not sure who this guy is. This guy is on vacation. Mamba is on vacation before we even start vacation. So.
I said to him, I was like, it looks like you're headed to Barbados today. What's going on with the fit?
I'm on vacation, y'all. We got 2 weeks off. I'm going to Brazil. I cannot wait.
I show up in a retro shirt, and you show up in some sort of Barbados outfit.
Barbados.
Beard,
It's like a linen fit. The sunglasses,
it's all from
tortoiseshell.
Zara.
Can we see your hair?
Huh?
Can we see your hair?
My hair, it's not in braids right now, so it's just kind of just out. You know?
Free flowing.
Yeah,
He's got a nice little
free-flowing.
fedora-esque hat on.
Is there any way that we can just buzz your hair down to your, like, just buzz it?
You want to do that?
Like to a 1 or a 2?
What are you going to give me if I let you do that?
I'll give you a high
Do you
five.
see how this works? This is always like a
Listen,
give and
high
take
five?
with
Listen,
you two.
I'll let you that I will do it,
I'll
but
give you some new retro shirts that
No,
you're
that's not
supposed to
what I
wear
want.
on the show
You-
that
you-
you didn't wear today.
you got to sponsor a race for me, and I'll let you cut my hair.
Oh my God, this is like a really big ask now for you.
You know how long I'm going to look dumb? It'll look dumb for a
Your
minute.
Oh, you've got that handled.
I can't throw my notes at you, but I really want to.
Yeah, but I mean, we just started the show.
Yeah, I know,
so
that's
if
why I
you throw
need
your
to
notes,
keep-
you won't know what to talk about.
Yeah, that's true. You gonna wear those shades the whole time?
I don't know. We'll see.
You have to wear the shades the whole
The
time.
whole time?
Absolutely.
Oh.
I mean, you could just look like this. That's how I use my bifocals.
Yeah.
Look down at the bottom, and it's less
And
shady.
it's light in the bottom. You know, we got the turtle shell heat waves on. So
Well, as you mentioned, though, you are going to some weddings in
Yep.
the break time that's coming up. Daniel Suarez and Tyler Reddick, he got invited to both VIP weddings.
Who schedules their weddings during the off season?
The off
wait,
season?
The off weeks of the season.
Well,
Sorry.
well,
I guess they don't
The
have any
weddings,
other
the
time,
weddings should be scheduled during the off season.
listen.
Nobody
Yeah.
wants to spend their break going to your wedding.
There was a.
I can tell you that.
There was a year, like 2 years ago, whenever Bubba got married, I had 7 weddings in that
Yeah.
time frame.
Everybody's mad.
Because
When were
everyone
you
does
married?
it.
You were
Everybody's going to be mad that they got to spend their off weeks at a wedding.
Oh, I'm sorry. You got to go to Brazil.
married. Did you go to a December
Oh.
wedding? No, you weren't. When was your wedding? It
My
was in
wedding
This was
between the
Vegas.
races.
It was in Vegas.
Yeah,
after a
okay.
race.
It was
Okay,
in
that's right.
between 2 races.
Oh, so that's better.
Yeah.
But you guys didn't like invite people, right? Or was it like a small group?
No. We had like 150 people.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
There
it
you
was.
go.
And that one, our wedding wound up being at a good time because Dale had died,
Right.
Yeah.
and then we had the wedding scheduled, and we kind of went on as everybody did. But
Mm.
I'm just giving you grief.
Of course.
You schedule your wedding whenever you want. It just seems strange.
Not his wedding. He
that
didn't even
it's-
have a girlfriend.
Yeah, not my wedding.
that it's during the 2 off weeks.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the beginning of the off weeks, though, and I think one for Daniel. Daniel's gonna go run the NASCAR Brazil
yeah.
race.
Oh, trust me, I
After.
have no idea all the logistics and planning that goes into this.
This guy.
So
Well,
Just know I'll be looking good at both.
just
of
have
them.
2 more
we know
married
that.
couples when they come back to
Yeah,
racing.
better
That's
than
right.
2 divorced groups.
That is
Ah,
true.
we might have
People
2
in there.
divorced.
May have that
I mean,
too.
you never know.
To be
You never
determined.
know.
But as I mentioned, we're approaching a break coming up. So we're going to kind of recap the season as a whole. Of course, look back on Indianapolis. We got your sips. And we appreciate the closers because now our happy hour podcast is on FS1. So you can see episodes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We will keep you guys posted on the time. So that's awesome.
Now we know why he
Right.
got dressed up. He's on TV.
We're on TV. We're a big time TV guy now.
That's right.
I'm in a
Uh,
t-shirt.
Speaking of speaking of the closers, I need a quick shout out to Aaron and Zach from Baltimore. They listened to the show. I told them, we talked about going to the Wild Beaver. I showed up after the
In
truck
Indy.
race Friday, and they were there. They're like, the only reason we're here is because we listened to the show. And you
That's so awesome.
so shout out to you boys. Appreciate
There you
y'all.
go.
I asked my wife, I showed her the picture because you were trying to blame it on being late. I said, have you ever heard of the Wild Beaver? And she's like, no. I said, me neither. So I didn't feel as bad.
Ah,
I felt like she had spent some time in Indy that she should know the Wild Beaver,
She probably should have.
but maybe it wasn't there.
No, I
Maybe.
think it's been there. It's like a staple of it.
It
Is
is.
it?
For a while,
I
yeah.
went this weekend too, but I didn't see you.
Whoa.
My daughter obviously thinks that my wife is some sort of long-standing
Ancient.
staple as well. We were driving
us.
down the road. We were coming home from our little trip that we were on, and she looked over. I looked in the mirror, and she's like, "Dad, Mom, do you think that there was a roof on that little buggy that Mom used to ride in? Did they have cars when you were a kid, Mom?
Was
Or
it
did
Oregon
you ride in
Trail?
one of those buggies?" And I was like, "Oh man, here we
Ooh.
go." Mom
Yep.
is looking at me like,
Are you serious?
what in the world is she talking about? Is she serious? I look in the mirror and Piper is dead ass serious. Like she is not joking one bit. She looks back at Piper, looks in the back seat, and she realizes that she's serious. And I'm like, "Do you think that thing had wooden tires, Piper? Were they round?"
It's a
Oh, no, you
wagon.
did
So
not.
we
Drove
went
by
right into
wagon.
digging, but you just never know what's coming out of the 6-year-old's mouth.
You really don't.
No.
That seems so random. Just a random
it
thought.
was very random.
Hey, yeah.
Driving down the highway.
D just taking L's out here.
Yeah.
Yep. We know.
Strange.
I love hearing the family stories. Every weekend there's something else.
Well, now he's there
going
so
on.
much, so now
Yeah,
like, he
it's
really,
great.
he's
You know what the really dangerous part about this is this podcast.
Why?
And the fact that I have the capability to rewind and watch things and really pinpoint who the
Idiots
ding
are.
dong is
the ding dong.
The ding dong.
during the accidents or the moments or whatever the situation is.
Well, we got a lot of ding dongs to talk about.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
We got a lot of incidents. I want to start though. Treetops, the race back on the oval at Indianapolis. What'd you think as a whole?
I love Indy. I love the oval. I love the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I love everything about it. I like the fact that there was a good crowd on hand to support the event. I know that Roger Penske and everybody, Doug Bowles and everybody at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway put a lot of emphasis and thought into how to bring the Brickyard back. Obviously, the 30th anniversary, and we had a very entertaining race.
Yes, we did.
And everything seemed to go pretty well with everything that they did at the Speedway. So whether it's a good race or a bad race, it doesn't matter. It does not matter to me. It's a historic racetrack. Our cars have gone there for now 30 years, and to be able to race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is an honor. And it needs to be on the oval. We don't need any more irrelevant years at the Brickyard racing on the road course and going backwards down the front straightaway. Please.
Yeah, because
No
Kevin
more
said those
backwards
wins
down the
don't
front
count.
straightaway. Those
at the
don't count.
Brickyard.
If you kiss the bricks, you don't count.
So you were out there obviously doing pit reporting and stuff this weekend for Fox. What did you think about the weekend as a whole?
Yeah, the whole weekend. I mean, going back to IRP as we should be. I hope the Xfinity cars put on a fantastic show on the big track. I just would love to see them back at
Agree.
IRP. I think that the big Indianapolis Oval or rectangle, whatever you want to call it, I think that deserves to be cup racing and top form of IndyCar racing. And let's just leave it at that. But it was great. I forgot how much I missed it.
Yeah.
Like you forget,
Mhm.
it's been, what has it been, 4 years or so since we did that? Because you won the last one, I guess. So it's been a while since we've been on that track and that configuration. And it was great racing and it was fun. It's technical. You forget how technical it is. Like you're not just driving with all the banking. You really got to think about where you're putting your race car.
Yeah.
So I loved every bit of it.
Yeah, and I think when you look at it, when you look at IRP and you look at the races that we've had out there, they had a great crowd at IRP as well.
Yep.
And I'm with you. The Xfinity race was great. Riley Herbst did a great job, put himself in position to win the race. They obviously had great race cars, and the racing was fantastic to watch. But I think that the Brickyard is, should be preserved for that highest level of racing on the oval. And the Xfinity Series is great, but it's not the Cup Series.
Right.
And I think that, like you said, the Indy 500, the Brickyard 400, that should be it. And I think that the Xfinity cars back at IRP would be a great show. I think the fans have obviously shown that they'll support it. I love the Indy fans. I just think that they're so well educated when it comes to racing. I mean, if you live in Indy, you're born around racing, and your town is entrenched in the Indy 500, and they're just knowledgeable race fans. And I think seeing the crowd that we had to support those races at IRP is it's a place where the Xfinity cars need to be, in my opinion, as well. I don't like 165 miles an hour down a straightaway. doesn't
Yeah.
seem fast enough to me.
Yeah.
I was with a couple people who had never been before to the Brickyard, and I could tell they were just blown away as soon as the race started, which it's always cool to see people's reactions to the first time they see something like that. And we saw a little bit of everything in this Cup race,
Yes, we did.
I would say. But Kyle Larson and the 5 team won. By the way, who chose them?
I think it was me, wasn't it?
No, it was not.
You? It was you. Okay, Kaitlyn. We're gonna
I'm
give you
sorry,
some credit.
But like, if I can get any wins and anything, like, I just got to have a moment where
We
I'm
gotta
happy
give her a
about
win.
it.
I mean, we heard about it about 4 minutes after he crossed the finish line in the group text. It's like,
It's
oh,
just a
hey, guys,
proud
by the
moment.
way, I picked him earlier today. No big deal, though.
I'm just happy she's comfortable enough to gloat.
It has been
on
hard
her-
for
on
me
her
to gloat
accomplishments.
ever to Kevin
And
Harvick.
now
but-
she's finally getting comfortable enough to talk trash. Not talk trash, but just
Baby steps.
in a
Babies.
very
Respectful
delicate way.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
That's
so we appreciate your trash talking. So keep it up.
Keep it up.
okay. So Kyle Larson has now got 3 Crown Jewel wins, and this was a big one, you could tell, for him and the team. But they battled through some attrition to get it done.
They did. And when you look back at this win, it is a very typical next gen race. And when you look at Indy, you look at Pocono, you look at every race now. There's going to be strategy involved in it. There's going to be moments that change the direction of the race, and your car is going to have some sort of capability to do things that everybody else couldn't. And at the end of that race, their strategy put Larson in position to do things that everybody else wasn't able to do. Everybody in front of him was saving gas. They were at a disadvantage on tires. He found a very unique way to enter the corner and go through the center of the corner and put himself in position to make passes. And ultimately, everything fell his way at the end with Keselowski running out of gas, having to go to pit road. We have the other discussion that we'll have with the restart and who was in charge or who had control of the race at that particular point on the restart. But they did everything that they had to do to capitalize on the end of that race and wind up in victory lane at the Brickyard. So, those guys, Cliff Daniels and his team, usually find a way to put themselves in position to have a chance from
Yes,
a
they
strategy standpoint, and they have one of the best behind the wheel.
Yeah, I was happy for them from the standpoint of they were running that McLaren paint scheme, the papaya orange they call
Yeah.
it. And I thought that was really cool because it was Kyle's idea to bring it back and run it for Indy since they didn't get to finish off the double, and then they were able to get redemption.
That's
and
true,
win. So I
that's
thought that
true,
was
yeah.
really cool. Kyle's great. He's probably the best race car driver on the planet right now, and he's able to show it. He's with one of the best teams and probably has the best crew chief pairing that he could ever need to be successful. And he just finds ways. And, sometimes he crosses those limits and he gets wrecked and puts himself in weird situations. But
It's fun to watch.
I will take Kyle Larson winning as much as he does over, maybe not on some of them, because we're always going to have a chance to win if Kyle Larson's driving.
Great effort.
And when you look at the F1 race, McLaren also won the F1 race too. So
They got a big weekend.
I'd love to
weekend.
have Zach Brown on this show.
There you go.
I think that would be a fun conversation to hear his take on Kyle Larson and his abilities, because I think he
Love
could
that
go
idea, yeah.
right into an F1 test and be up to speed on the on day
Listen,
one.
Listen, with the McLaren, the IndyCar, Kyle Larson could end up at an F1 McLaren
Well,
I still want to see a
situation.
test. I want to see him test an F1
He will
car.
haul the mail.
Also, how about him dropping a hint that he may be doing the double again?
That wasn't a hint.
Well, I mean, that was true.
He can
That's-
backpedal all that he wants. And we had Kyle Larson on with our victory lap this week. And he can backpedal all that he wants. He said he's going to come back, wants to come back and kiss those bricks on the front straightaway at the Indy 500. And I'm here for it. I think everything that Kyle Larson does in racing, some people get a little annoyed with everybody talking about Kyle Larson, but he races more than anybody on earth. And he's successful in everything that he does. And I like watching Kyle Larson race and do things that other people don't do. And I think it's great for our sport. It's not only great for our sport, it's great for racing. And I want to see him back at the Indy 500. I'd love to see him run a race beforehand. I'd like to see him run one of the ovals at some point, because they do some of those double headers.
I don't know if that would work with
Why?
the schedule. I don't know. The schedule.
Just do it. Just skip practice. He doesn't need practice.
Look at him.
All
He's
right,
mapping
listen,
out his
all right,
future
All
already.
right, Kyle.
Love
All right,
it.
Young Money, come
Yeah,
get you
we'll
some.
have to follow and see if that announcement is coming down the line for Kyle Larson. You mentioned some people were annoyed with him. And I also want to add, though, you can see the victory lap interview with Kevin and Kyle now. One of the drivers who was annoyed, maybe not with him, but the situation was Ryan Blaney. Walk me through everything that was going on here once Brad Keselowski obviously had to pit because they stayed out an incredibly long amount of time. That was miraculous
Yeah.
in some ways. What did you make of all this?
Well, Brad must have saved a ton of gas.
No kidding.
At some point when he was in the middle of the pack at the beginning of that run and how all that shook out. So this is a very unique situation, and I think that we said it earlier. Kyle Larson had a lot of things fall his way in order to win the race, and this restart situation with Brad pulling off the racetrack and Kyle assuming the front row on the inside on the restart. I'm not sure that. Well, I know I'm sure that Kyle Larson didn't know whether he was in control or not in control. We heard Tyler Reddick talk about it after the race, not knowing the exact scenario of who was the controller of the restart at that particular point. But Ryan Blaney was the control car. The restart was tight. I went back and watched it a couple times. I don't see anything that I would call a penalty or from Larson jumping the start. I think they took off about the same time, and he just beat Blaney through the gears. It looked like to me. Yeah. So a very unique scenario that wound up ultimately being the thing that won him the race. But when we did our victory lap interview, you heard Kyle Larson reference, we wanted to pick behind Brad because we thought he might run out of gas on the pace laps coming to the green. So there's this constant thought process of things that are going on. And that was definitely a part of the conversation of Larson and those guys picking behind Brad, thinking that they might run out of gas. And Blaney obviously felt like he was in a good position because he felt like Brad might not go on the restart. But Ryan flipped out. He was
out. A lot of
angry.
F-bombs,
Maybe we need some radioactive segments on this show because there was a few pieces that we could play right now with Blaney and Larson and everything that went on. But you get into this scenario if you say, okay, well, NASCAR should throw the caution. Well, now we have a fuel mileage race, and now we're going to go 2 more laps with a caution. There's just some of these things that just happen, and it's just luck of the racing gods. And Kyle Larson got that moment, where he was granted a gift because they were coming to the green.
He said it was BS. Killed his race, benefited Larson, obviously. Called him a golden boy.
He called him a golden boy.
I honestly, though, when I was listening back to some of it, do you think it's just also partially, everyone wants to win at that track. It means so much to win at the Brickyard that it felt like he was even more fired up for that reason.
I think everyone wants to win, period.
Right.
Point blank, right? But add on top of, we're back on the oval of the Brickyard. Add on top of RP now owns this facility and like what it means for Penske to go to victory lane there. And they had called pretty much the perfect race. Like they did everything that they needed to do to win that race, and something completely out of their control, which is why it's racing, right? That stuff happens. But it was really unfortunate because had Brad made it, another 10, 20 yards?
Yeah.
He's not pulling off, or at least Ryan's, gonna assume the lead when they do take off. And I think in Ryan's interview, he said he didn't want to get behind Brad because he was afraid that he was going to run out of fuel in a non-opportune situation. So it's interesting when you the risk that the 5 took versus, not the risk that the 12 took. But, it worked out for the 5 and those guys, and it just really didn't for the 12. They arguably, you can't say should have won the race, but like the way it kind of played out, you would assume that Ryan takes the lead, that caution comes out, he controls down into 1. If he's able to handle the lead, then he wins the race. So it's tough.
The unique thing too, Blaney wrecked a couple restarts before that.
It wasn't that long before that.
He was dead sideways, car in his door. And that's one of the things that since we raced at the Oval last is different now. These guys are much more aggressive on the restarts. We saw Kyle Larson doing a lot of very unique things with his car. He'd dive down to the inside and make those kind of dive bomb passes at the last second. So this next-gen car kind of changed the characteristic of how you race. And we heard Kyle Larson say in the victory lap interview, it raced he said if he had his eyes closed, he couldn't tell you which car he was in.
That's crazy.
As far as how the car raced, the handling characteristics that come with the car. And for me, I view that as a good thing because we know how much people love the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indy 500. And hearing Kyle Larson say that there's really no difference. He did say that he felt faster in the stock car than he did the Indy car.
That's interesting.
So there were just a number. I think it's so interesting to hear Kyle's comments from Indy car to stock car, Indy 500 to Brickyard 400, and hear those similarities is very interesting.
I think him running the Brickyard 500 definitely helped. Like, because some of the moves, if he said it felt that similar, then he's like, oh, I know what to do here. I've been in this situation more recently than these guys had. I think it was at the end of stage 1, maybe 2, I forget which one. He was trying to get by Blaney, and he kept showing early, just trying to get Ryan to make a mistake because it's really one groove. Like, if you get in the gray and you lift for a second, like, you're losing, it was like 10 or 12 car lengths. So, like, he was putting the pressure on guys.
Yeah.
So Kyle Larson, obviously things worked out for him and his team, but a number of incidents. I want to go through some of these key moments in the race. Go back to stage 2. This was with William Byron and AJ Allmendinger. This was a pretty bad accident that took place. And William Byron, this has been interesting because at the start of the season, we saw so much momentum out of that group, a lot of wins, and it's been a little bit more quiet. They haven't been running poorly by any stretch of the imagination, but it's been a little bit more of a quiet summer. What'd you see here?
Well, I like I say, this rewind button for me is very dangerous. And I think when I hear William Byron's interviews, he's very frustrated because he feels like his cars are running good. And I think in this scenario, when they wreck here, he's, as he put it, back there with the squirrels. He was very frustrated with Chase Briscoe, and this wreck started, as you'll see, Briscoe just come up the racetrack right here. I went back and listened to the in car. You could hear Briscoe lift once they got connected right here, but I thought he got tight. But it sounds like he just came up the racetrack trying to protect that position, and Byron was already there. And when they make contact, he lifted. But you see these big shots. Glad everybody's okay because those were big shots right there.
Yeah, they're big hits. I mean, so he's mad at Briscoe, right, for kind of using him up. But the 41, like, Priest kind of stuck his nose in there, and it wasn't really. Yeah. It was a hole, but it wasn't like.
Well, that's what ultimately caused the crash. Was Priest going in the middle and the inside and outside car, not knowing he was in there, and kind of that's what started the crash. That actually took everybody out. Right. But the thing that started that scenario was when the 14 and 24 made that contact and checked those cars up. But William Byron, they have the speed. Let's not forget, we're at a bunch of very unique racetracks right now. That's with right. Pocono and Indy and road courses, and got all these one-off racetracks that we're going to that we're not going to race on in the playoffs. Right. So, I think some of these traditional racetracks, aside from the road course piece of it that we have in the playoffs that kind of shakes everything up, it really kind of allows for some unique scenarios. And I still feel like these guys that are racing for 16th or not racing for 16th, I think they're racing Chris Buescher in 15th. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just have this feeling that somebody is going to win outside the box at Daytona.
He definitely has been standing by that statement.
He has been. You know who's in that wreck that is not having fun either? 2 guys, Harrison Burton. If there's a wreck, it seems like he finds it, and AJ Allmendinger.
Yep.
I mean, even when it's going okay for those guys, it
Speaking of that, you led me right to my next driver, Kyle Busch.
Like that.
Started 34th, but he was able to make gains throughout this race. At one point, he was in the top 5. It seemed like he was poised for a top 10 before an incident in the very end, contact with the 11 with 3 to go. 25th now for Rowdy Busch and 112 points below the cut line.
Yeah, this is a loaded scenario because I feel like Kyle is driving way over his head. His cars are off the pace on certain weeks. But in this scenario, he's passing Denny Hamlin. He's in the top 5, passing Denny Hamlin, and just way overdrives the corner, drives into the side of Denny Hamlin, and wrecks himself. So he's had a ton of bad luck. He's as frustrated as I have ever seen Kyle Busch in his racing career. Mm-hmm. He handles it better than he did before, but he's also crashing a lot in practice. He's crashing in these scenarios where he just needs to finish. gain some points and just get the car rolling across the start finish line. He's been in scenarios where it hasn't been his fault, but this one is 100% on him with a car that they ran in the back with part of the day,
Right.
but wound up in the front making a pass inside the top 5. You got to finish those. You got to get those to the start finish line and finish those days out to stop the bleeding, because right now, I mean, he's bleeding from every direction that you can bleed from. And I just, I think in some of those situations, you just got to take a deep breath and maybe it's, let's finish 5th instead of 4th, or 4th instead of 3rd, and get to the finish line.
Yeah.
We got to finish to get some momentum going, because now that momentum that you could have had is dead in the water because you just plowed it into the fence.
If you look at the races that he's wrecked out, he's on, like, I think there's like 6 of them he wrecked out of the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Like from running in the top, like he's just been crazy.
But even if 50% of them are dumb luck,
that's what I'm saying.
Right? Let's get the other 50% to the finish line.
We gotta.
At some point, you gotta be the guy that is getting those cars to the start finish line. You can't keep making the mistakes that you're making when you know you're way behind the 8 ball anyway.
That was wild. It was wild.
So Kyle Busch obviously frustrated. I think so too is Martin Truex Jr., another team that it's surprising to see at this point in the year they have not gone to victory lane, and this was an eventful race for them as well, serving a penalty right out of the gate, and we see him also get into the wall at one point. Some situation with Ross Chastain too. What did you see from all this?
Well, I didn't see. I saw Kyle Larson and Martin make contact, and Ross come down the racetrack, and they were 3 wide. But really, the incident was caused from the 5 and the 19 making contact in the middle of the corner. So I think Martin's counting them down. I think at this point he knows he's retiring. They want to do good, but moments like this make him pretty happy that he knows he only has 14 more.
That's probably true. Yeah,
he is. We are on cruise control here. Especially, they had a bad start to the race. Yep. Come down pit road and have sort of penalty and like make your way through, and then you're like, okay. But even in that replay, you could see like Larson. He was tight on Larson's door. And Larson, like, gets a little free. I don't know if he clipped a little bit of the
It's a little bit bumpy down there. I think they just got connected.
And then once they got connected, he was in the gray, and it's see you later, brother.
Yeah. So. And everybody was holding everybody tight. But in the end, I felt like Martin kind of put himself in that position to have the contact, and then he wrecked. So I just think that, I don't think it's going to get a lot better. I think they have the speed to be able to go out and win races, but it's all going to have to work out right for them to be able to do that.
So Martin Truex Jr., obviously a former champion in the Cup Series. So too is Joey Logano and Jimmy Johnson. And we saw an incident between these two. And obviously Jimmy doesn't race that often with us anymore, but this was not how that team probably would have preferred their day to go.
No, and he had decent track position. And, we saw an incident that was very similar to the Priest incident, where he was in the middle, the 2 cars on the inside and outside didn't know he was really there. This is the exact same scenario that started this wreck, with Hocevar kind of poking his nose in the middle, and then you had Blaney on the outside that just came down the racetrack, didn't really know he was there. I don't remember who was on the inside, but they caused the crash. And when Blaney got turned to the left, it actually hooked the right rear of Jimmy Johnson, which hooked the left rear of Joey Logano, and all those guys wound up in the fence. So the only thing I can say, when you look right here, I don't think Hocevar is doing anything wrong. He's clearly in the middle of the racetrack, and the 12 comes down on him. Yeah. But with as many guys that are frustrated with Hocevar, at this point, it's always going to be his fault, because it seems like he's in the middle of a lot of things, and I think that just comes with time. Being able to have the understanding of when to stick your nose in there, when to not try to take a position, or when to hit a guy, or when to not hit a guy, or when to spin a guy out under caution, and when not to spin a guy out under caution. But you hear so many guys talk about Hocevar and how frustrated they are with the way that he races and the things that he does, that it just seems like it's always going to be his fault at this particular point. And you go through spells. I've been through spells of times like that, but he's definitely going to have to learn the Cup style of racing. It's much rougher than it used to be, and you got to err to the aggressive side. Yeah. But he's definitely getting the brunt of the blame on.
Do you think we should have an UNC intervention for him? Because we know that Kevin is invested in a lot of these young guys and helps them. Maybe you need to step in there and just give a little coaching.
I love every one of these guys. I love the fact that they're out there doing what they do, but unfortunately, my job is to critique it now. And for them, I have that rewind button.
Yep.
But I just listen. I listen to all the guys that just talk about Hocevar, and they make these kind of comments towards the way that he's doing things and the way that he's going about it. But I think a lot of that comes with your rookie year, and when you're a guy that stands on the gas and is worried about going forward and trying to go fast, you're going to have some of these moments. So he's definitely in a character building year.
Yes, he is. At the beginning of the season, he had a lot of bright moments. Now it's kind of like he's going
still
through
having
a big
those too,
learning
but
curve,
they're getting harder because
yeah.
guys just keep cutting him less and less slack because they feel like they're getting run into and in situations that they shouldn't be getting run into. But I don't think that was his fault. But they're all going to blame it on him because
it's easy to blame him.
Because he's the guy that's easy to blame it on right now. But that particular instance, I think the 12 chops the 77, not knowing that he's there.
Yeah, no,
that's how I viewed it.
No, and the 12, like he's going into turn 1, they're funneling down in there. You really, if you're on the third groove on the top end of turn on any of these turns, like you're completely screwed. So like he was trying to force his way back to a lane that he could get a run off of.
77 was there though.
77 was there.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the 41 where the 41 kind of was late. 77 was there already getting into the corner.
So one other team we've been talking about for a couple of weeks is Ty Gibbs and Joe Gibbs Racing. Once again, there was some sort of an engine issue happening on that car. And you said it just last week. You're like, this is getting a little concerning. We're approaching the playoffs. You can't have things like this happening.
I just feel like and we've seen this before with the engine group at Toyota. When you have these moments, you have to be on edge because we've seen it happen in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And now we've had 4 of these moments that we know of that have happened.
Short succession.
Yeah. In a pretty short amount of time. So there's obviously an issue there. You're going to have to shift. They're going to be high RPM racetracks. You're going to have to go to these places. You shift pretty much everywhere that you go, except for the speedways. And so these engine issues are a huge concern for me as you go into the playoffs because it seems like they could pop up at any moment, with whatever's happening to the engines. We saw them raise the hood. I had to text Bob Pockers today. I'm like, did you hear this the same way that I heard this? And you hear them reference the engine issues on the radio, and they say they'll talk about it next week. So I'm concerned. We were concerned last week, and now I'm even more concerned because here it is again.
I think it's like 5 races.
Hopefully they get it out of the way before the playoffs.
The problem
is you can't get out of that engine cycle.
Yeah, and the problem is too is like the biggest track, the race. Even if you make it to even if you make it to Phoenix, if your Achilles heel is these shifting racetracks, well, the last one, the one that matters the most is Phoenix, and you got to do it there a lot. And it's like, man, like you don't know, right? It's I think all their cars almost have had it. Like it's been random. It's not like the same car. So like
you got the May pop strategy, right?
Golly, it's tough.
May pop at any moment.
May pop at any. I didn't know what that meant at first.
The May pop.
Okay, so that was the Brickyard. That was a very eventful race weekend as well. As I referenced at the top of the show, we now have a 2-week break. So that begs the question on who's got the momentum, who's going to be stressed the whole time over the 2 weeks. I would say obviously Team Penske and Hendrick Motorsports have the most momentum right now, given what we've seen over the last couple of weeks. Would you agree?
12 cars in the hunt. And we didn't say that at the beginning of the year. The 12 cars in the hunt.
Whoa. Who's we?
Oh, that's his boy.
Who's we? I've been riding 12.
You agreed.
I've been riding 12 the whole time.
Well, you were riding a 12, but you were a little slow at the beginning of the year.
Well, they were a little slow at the beginning of the year
but
too. But
they have got the ship headed in the right direction. They've been performing well. In contention. That Jonathan calls a great race. Week after week, he does a great job on the pit box, and they're firing on all 8 cylinders for sure. I think Logano is not quite like the 12. I don't think Cindric has anything for those 2 cars. I think that the 24 has been off. I think that's just part of next gen racing, right? Like especially when you go through these unique racetracks through the summertime, you just have these these different
Ebbs and
places
flows.
that you just keep going, and you got to ride the wave at the right time. The 5 is obviously good. They call a great strategy. Gabe Hart and those guys call a great strategy, but you're just going to get caught up in these wrecks, and you're going to have these moments of just things not going right. We saw it with the 20 car. We've seen it with the 48 car. Those guys all perform well though, and it's just getting hot at the right time. I'm super concerned for Ross Chastain and the 1 car. I feel like they've kind of got their ship righted. And I feel like when their ship is right and headed in the right direction, they have more speed than the 1. And now it's only 7 points apart for 16th. But I still believe Chris Buescher is the spot. Yeah. I think that's the guy that technically will be the 16th place guy as we get through these races, because I just feel like somebody's going to win at Daytona, but I'm concerned for the 1 just because of the fact that they haven't shown the speed that the 23 has, and in general they've had some bad luck.
7 points above the line right now for Ross Chastain. 7 below is Bubba Wallace, who I feel like had a good race. I mean, they were up front, leading laps. I mean, doing the things they need to do. Won a stage, and he seemed pretty optimistic in his interview. He's like, I'm a little disappointed to see the points where they're at, but I feel like I'm gonna have a good 2 weeks, just kind of low key.
Yeah, I mean, they did everything they came in to do. Had speed. He was upset with himself that he put the team behind earlier in the week and not getting the qualifying effort that they need, because qualifying is so important. But if I'm the 23, I feel good about it, and I feel good because of 45. Tyler Reddick I think he's 15 points out of the regular season points championship. Like, he's close. Like, he's making speed, and you wouldn't know it by the way Tyler acts after a race when he finishes anywhere between 2nd and 40th. You just think that it was the worst. Yeah, the world is ending. Is the worst.
He did all right this weekend.
Yeah,
he was a little.
He was better this week.
He was better this week.
But I think he's still the bridesmaid. He still finished. I know he's going to get married, but he's still the bridesmaid at this particular point, because he's frustrated with the fact that he hasn't won as many races as he thought. Right. When he has the ability, the strategy, the speed, whatever it is, he's had the ability to win more races. And as a driver, I've been there. That is frustrating. When you feel like you're not capitalizing, it almost bothers you more than wrecking and running bad, because of the fact that you know how hard these races are to win. And he knows he should have won more races up until this point.
Who do you think has had the most impressive season so far? You can only pick one team. Most impressive.
I think if you go with straight wins, I mean, it has to be the 5 car. They missed a race. They've won 4 races. They're still leading the points, doing all the things that they're doing. I still think that they just have this over-the-top dynamic from top to bottom, driver, crew chief, team. I was fortunate to be in the middle of that at the All-Star race and witness that. It is an absolutely phenomenal team. But there are other ones out there. I look at the 11, the 12, the 5. They all have this great dynamic from crew chief to driver to team that just works, and they figure out a way to make it happen. But I think when you look outside of those top guys, I saw it again this weekend. Todd Gilliland is in the mix. Coming to the green flag. He's right behind Larson. Coming to the green flag for that restart that won Larson the race. So there's a lot of guys that have done better than I thought they would do, and there are some that have just not done as well as I thought they would.
I think Blaney and the 12 group, coming off of a championship, no championship hangover. I mean, they weren't aggressively fast at the beginning of the year. They were like 8th to like 12th. I think we mentioned that early on in the season, but now they're consistently in the top 5 and they're showing speed to win races. So I think them backing up what they did last year and maybe turning the heads because they're Ford, and the Ford struggled early on. Also, I have to give a call to Justin Haley. I mean, he didn't really, I think the last couple of weeks have been a little rough for them, but like up to this point, surprisingly fast and in the mix more times than not.
And I think that to me, the RFK cars got better, but they still don't have the speed that they had last year.
Right.
Chris Buescher especially. They had this flash of like 3 or 4 weeks where they had
the
speed.
Amazing, yeah.
And then since then, it's just kind of gone away. So it'll be interesting to see who gets hot with the last 10 weeks.
Buscher needed that Darlington. Well, I mean, they still got it with Brad, but the 17 needed it probably as bad, maybe a little bit worse.
And I feel like Brad they grind away.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like that the 17 car has been able to grind away at a race like Brad and his team have been able to do that. That's typical Brad. He's raced like that for years. He just shows up at the end of the race and in position, whether it's from strategy or whatever they've done, fast car, slow car, they just figure out a way to wind up having a chance at the end, like they did this week.
That was
somehow, some way.
Yeah.
They figured out. I don't feel like Buscher and his team have been able to be able to do that this year, like the 6 car has, and neither one of them have had the consistent speed like they had last year.
Drivers below the cut. Briscoe 83 below. Busch 112. Do they make it? Yes, no.
No.
Okay, no.
No, I mean, as bad as I want Kyle Busch to win a race.
Oh, didn't he do the reverse psychology pick this week?
I did.
Because he thought maybe that would.
Yeah.
See, you just need to stop.
Kevin makes me have to pick him.
Because he almost got a
pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have no choice but to make a pick.
And in all honesty, too, I may have took a nap for a small portion of the race.
That's disappointing.
I'm over there slaving away on our notes.
Yeah,
for this
and you
show,
crushed it. And you absolutely crushed it. I woke up and Kyle Busch is passing he's passing for 5th. And I'm like, I'm excited, right? This is the end of it. And then the next quarter, he was in the fence. I'm like, oh my God.
It's because of you. You
jinxed
the Mamba curse.
Total jinx.
I should have stayed asleep. But yeah, no, they're not. They're not.
No to both. Briscoe.
No to both. No to both.
Yeah.
If they got to win one, I just don't really at this point see where they're going to.
Well, we just have 4 weeks to go for some of these teams to make some magic happen. So it's time now for your segment. Here we go.
Now stop. Just stop. Put your This is not going to be any good. Put your sunglasses on. You got to at least look cool for your own segment.
Oh,
gotta look cool for your own segment.
Hang on.
All right, now start over.
Now start
over.
Yeah,
Hang on.
start over. Now you look normal. The only thing to make it better is if you had a cigar hanging out of your mouth.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your favorite segment of the show, Mamba's Social Sips. And for all of you watching on FS1, this is going to make your week, I promise you. All right, so we're going to start right here. I was fortunate enough to get the call up because Josh Sims got pulled to do some other stuff. So I got called up to do the truck race at IRP and do pit road from there. So I did practice and qualifying as well. And if you're new to the show, when Kevin was in the booth, I gave him the closers all gave him a word of the week. And one of the words of the week that we used was yeet. Mm-hmm. And Kevin used it at Dover. And I'm like, you know what? I can do it better than he did it. So I just slid it in there this week. Let's roll the footage. Let's hear the word of the week.
So what's it going to take? Around here, I feel like it's really hard to pass and really hard to get around people. You can get wide, but you got to pick your moments.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. This place is very racy. I mean, I love it. This is one of my favorite short tracks that we go to. I was so glad to see it back on the schedule, so hopefully you go pick up a win here.
All right, guys, watch out for the 88. Might have to yeet one of these kids out of the way to get that win.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
I've not used that one before.
Adam says, I haven't used that one before.
I was dying when
funny.
they started laughing. I was dying laughing up there.
You did,
That was
you
good.
did good.
You did a great
that was a
job.
very natural
I thought you did good during the whole practice qualifying broadcast.
Thanks.
You did pretty good.
It's
How'd it
different. There's a lot of information coming in.
There is,
You
yes.
talked about the emails at the beginning. I didn't realize how many there was, and you got Bob helping you and all the producers and everybody, and so
Yeah, if you just pay attention, you don't really need to do anything when you get there because you're so informed that you can pretty much cover anything.
the information that is coming in at you is a lot, and
That's
it's
right.
fast. So, but it was great. I had a great time. Thanks for Crafton for having fun with us. So, going back to last week, Chicago. We were in Chicago, and Kevin mentioned that he didn't love
The burnout.
the burnout that the drifting attempt that Alex Bowman did. Well, Alex Bowman made a nice little edit for you,
Response
Kevin. A
video,
little
yeah.
response.
You know what I love about this?
And
And this is, if you're gonna drift, don't spin out and hit the wall. But I love the fact that I had no idea that Alex Bowman did this.
Yeah.
And I also love the fact that he fired back.
Love it.
We can have fun. I can critique you. You can critique me. Feel free to fire back because I'm here to just cover what I see. And that to me is a poor drifting attempt. when your nose first into the wall. But your Corvette looks great.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing a very good job, drifting around the racetrack. So we were actually driving home as well, and Keelan chirps in from the back seat. He's like, "Ooh, Dad, you're taking some heat." I'm like, "Heat from what?" He's like, "Apparently you critiqued Alex Bowman's drifting attempt after the race, and he's a drifter." I said, "What? He's a drifter? I had no idea."
There you go.
Alex Bowman's a
Here to learn
drifter.
new things on
Alex
Happy Hour.
Bowman, he's a drifter.
Stand on it. And by the way,
Ooh, stand on business, Kev said.
stand on it.
Okay.
That's right. Stand on it. But
By the
you know,
way.
I don't know what that means.
I know,
Did I
no,
say something? That
yeah,
meant
you said something kind of
Did
cool.
I say something that
You
meant
just ruined
something?
it, so don't worry about yeah. Just-
No, he's good.
I do like Alex Bowman.
No, I know.
I think he did. I think they do a great job, but don't take it personally, Alex. We're having fun.
Bowman, stand on business, bud. All right. Speaking of someone who stood on business, they said that this kid would never win a race. And he won Vegas last year in his hometown, which was awesome. And he did a phenomenal job driving through the field here at the end and taking the lead in the Xfinity race. Riley Herbst, congratulations, my guy.
Yeah.
The last corner pass, when like they come down the stretch to get the white, and I'm like, oh, he's making the pass here. Oh, here comes a 20. I thought they had both lost the race. I thought it was over.
I thought it was over. And then you go down that back straightaway and he makes the pass coming out of 3, and then they touch doors and dead sideways. And I talked to Riley after the race. I said, "Did you lift?" He said, "It was the Brickyard. I am not lifting."
Yeah,
never
that.
checked out of the gas, slid that thing back straight, and got to the start finish line first. So that was a great finish.
It was amazing,
It was.
and I thought that they were going to be picking the cars out of the fence because he was.
I did too.
When they touched, he was so sideways, and they didn't catch it on the broadcast right away. And I was like, "Holy shit!" Like he just
I thought the replay was going to be of him backed into the fence.
I didn't think they were making it out.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Stuart Haas really needed a shot in the arm. They qualified 1-2 with Cole Custer and Riley. Finished 1-2, Riley, Cole Custer. So shout out to them.
So speaking of not great finish.
Speaking of teammates that finished 1-2, okay. F1 race that I don't know where they raced at this weekend, to be honest. I think it was Hungary. It's a Hungarian Grand Prix or something. I don't know.
Yeah, the McLarens.
The McLarens.
Yeah.
The McLarens won, which is cool. Like, at this point, if Red Bull doesn't win, it's kind of like shocking, and you kind of pull for that. But so Lando Norris has the lead. They pit him right first before his teammate. He comes back out. He has the lead. The Oscar Piastri cannot catch him, and I think it was like a 20-lap run. Can't catch him. Ends up 3 to 5 seconds behind. They're radioing to Lando to back up to Oscar and let him pass because Oscar was in front when they did the strategy. Now, this is where I have a problem with this. There's no way in God's green earth that I think that I could lift out of that. You called the strategy. If he would have caught me, I guess, and then you want me to let him go?
They called the strategy, and I totally disagree with everything that happens in F1 when they let one guy go by and not the other guy. But they were calling the strategy for Piastri to stay out so that they could keep Hamilton backed up and so that, and then they made it right at the end. So, but it's still not great.
Not great at all.
It's Oscar's first win.
Yeah.
And
that doesn't feel like a real win to me.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not a driver, but that's.
I don't know. Their culture is different over there.
They have no problem with it. When we would go to the go-kart races over there with Keelan, there were 100% moments where they would sit in the tent and give team orders for the kids racing karts. So it's dealt with that way all the way from the very bottom of their ladder system all the way through the very top at F1. It's a much different culture.
That's frowned upon in our world.
Yeah,
the team
I mean,
orders
that would
thing.
be.
Can you imagine?
No, I cannot
Get
imagine.
thrown out.
Yeah.
Like
sure.
if we because it's, I don't know. To me, I guess I look at it. It's like kind of not fixing the race, but it's like if
manipulating the outcome.
Yeah, and like it's stats driven at the end, right?
Yeah.
So like as a driver, like you only are as good as your stats. So
I'm
Lando
not a
has
fan
one less win.
Well, that was the way that one worked out. I mean, what do you think about the way that ours worked out this week? The last caution.
Yeah.
I mean, should it have been a caution?
The last caution?
The last caution.
The last one. I wish they would have thrown it before they got to the line.
Yeah. I thought that was
honest.
I thought the call at the end of our race was not good. When Priest spun out He was mid-pack. He wound up nosing into the fence barely. And
Just sitting there,
the
yeah.
tire was flat. He was on the rub blocks. The tire was flat. He was not going anywhere. And they waited and waited and waited, and he wasn't moving, sitting up on the racetrack. The caution should have been thrown in turn 4. And it just doesn't seem like there's as much consistency as there needs to be when it comes to these calls at the end of the race, whether you throw a caution or not throw a caution. So I didn't like the way that the race ended with the caution not being thrown.
Yeah, and Ellen Sawyer had an interview with Alex Weaver after the race and explained that they were watching it. And I think that the 41 was also he was close to a gap where if he could have got going, and he did initially go, and then it just stopped. And it's like, you just were sitting there like praying for the caution to come out before they got to the line, because it was going to be a great
Well,
race.
I can tell you this: whoever was watching that needs to be talked to, because the left rear tire was
down.
The tire was down. I don't remember exactly which one it was. I think it was left rear, but they had a tire that was down. It was sitting on the rub blocks, and when they sit on the rub blocks, they don't move. And I just believe that it was that was a missed call.
It was
Badly missed call.
It was a bit unfortunate for how that
Yeah.
one ended, because it was a great race.
Was a great race.
You hate to see that.
I just
Now-
hate that you have the controversy at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, of course, right? We want to see it end. Everyone in the gas and getting all they can get. And speaking of getting all you can get, a side segment to
Here we go.
Social Sips
Yep.
is the grading of the burnout. And we talked about Kevin's burnout from Indy last
Being
week,
one of
and
the
how
best
you
ever.
need to do it all the way from
Bar
turn
was
1.
high. Yeah.
I said that sounds like a Larson thing. And by golly, if it wasn't a Kyle Larson thing. This is arguably the best burnout of the year. Kevin.
Oh, now I see. Now I see why the tire blew out before he got to the start finish line, because he did 3 donuts.
Good donuts.
Good
with big
donuts.
Smoke.
And
Big
my
smoke,
favorite,
yeah.
one of my favorite things about the next gen car is how the pipes go out the side and it blows the smoke out
Yeah.
of the
It
side of the
looks
car
awesome.
like that. But this was an absolutely magnificent burnout. And I think
There you go.
had a little bit too much RPM, didn't quite make it back to the start finish line is what I initially thought, but it's the donuts.
It's the donuts.
It's the donuts. You see the tire blow out right there. And as a driver, you hear the tire start to come apart. So that's when you know to stop. But he was super close to being at the start finish line. So that would have made it perfect if he had stopped right there before the start finish line with
That
the
would've
tire
made it
still
10.
smoking.
So where we
He
at?
gave him a magnificent, which I
Yeah,
haven't heard
that's-
him use.
yeah.
It was
that
really good.
word
Because
yet.
right now,
Okay,
Really good.
SVG's Xfinity win at
Didn't beat it.
Sonoma
No.
is the top because of things with Austin Hill flipping him off while
Yeah.
he's drifting behind him. So are you saying that Kyle Larson's beats
No.
SVG?
No.
So SVG's sitting at like a 9
Yeah,
point.
the taunting after the race and the middle finger getting flipped off and all the proper drifting in a stock car, not a drifting car, just takes the cake.
So if
for me.
SVG's at a 9.6, this is a 9 point.
So am I a Russian judge, a Chinese judge, or an American judge?
I mean,
Who's my
we're-
athlete?
We're USA here, baby.
Okay, we're USA. Well, I'm gonna give it a 9.2.
9.2.
so that's
Pretty good.
Okay.
Pretty sporty.
It was pretty
Yeah.
good
I don't
because
know.
you could have, we could have gotten closer to the start finish line if we're looking for a 10.
Mhm.
I'm gonna need the overall judge Piper Harvick to come in on this
Yes,
and let
that's
me
what we
know.
really
Piper,
need to have
we
her
need your
weigh in
input
each
here
week.
because this
Yeah.
one is pretty high.
We
up
know
there.
she's a tough
It was a
critic
good
as
one.
well. Okay, guys, time now for our last call. And this week, we're giving our picks for the championship, not a race, because we have 2 weeks off, which I already know yours, and I'm going to agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm going Denny Hamlin. I would love to see Denny Hamlin finally get his first championship in the Cup Series. He's had a Hall of Fame worthy career. That's the last box really that needs to be checked. We're going 11. What do you say? Oh, you're not allowed one.
We're team 11.
You're team 11.
So you don't want to pick one
No, I'm
because you're
picking-
such bad luck that you don't want to pick one.
No, I'm bad luck with race.
If there's
winning.
someone you don't like, you should pick him because then it won't happen.
You got
See
4
what you
choices.
tried to sucker me into doing something I shouldn't do. I see
Yeah.
what you did there. No, I'm going. I said it earlier. I think it's time to see a back-to-back champion. We haven't seen one
Oh.
since Jimmy Johnson.
Okay.
Ryan Blaney, Team
Alrighty.
Penske, the 12 group, Jonathan Hassler. They're going to go back-to-back this year and make it
Okay.
3 in a row for Team Penske as a whole.
You mentioned Jonathan Hassler, obviously crew chief for Ryan Blaney. Your
Oh.
former crew chief, Rodney Childers, is your guest this week. This is
Yes.
so exciting. This should be an easy convo.
It'll be very easy. And
Yeah.
I think for me that the timing is great because of the fact that he accepted a position at Spire. Big changes in his career path and everything that he's been used to for the last 10 years is going to, the scenery is going to change, the manufacturer is going to change, the people are going to change, the owners. I mean, there's just a huge change. So I've already been through it. They went through it with a driver change this year with Josh Berry, and then obviously everything happened with Stewart Haas Racing. So I think I'll have some great insight as to what he's thinking.
Real quick,
look forward to that.
Just off the cuff, Rodney Childers, Corey LaJoie next year in the playoffs.
That's a good. I don't know. We'll just have to see how those cars.
Put him on the spot over there.
We'll have to see. There's too many things in between now and then.
There
that
is
can
so
happen
much,
because you don't know who's going to change the body. You don't know if the rules are going to change. You don't know this. You don't know that. So I got to have all the details first. I'm not getting in the middle of that yet.
Listen, RC, I believe in RC. If he's there.
We all do. 3 votes for RC. Okay, we look forward to that conversation. You can see a new episode on Thursday. Then we will be back August 12th after the break. So make sure you subscribe on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review. And we will see you, the closers, after Richmond.